You saw the title. It's almost new watch time, and I need your help. This is going to be a big purchase for me. It's going to reward an accomplishment, an achievement. Full disclosure, this achievement's on track to happen at the end of 2024. It's not new watch time right now, but I need to know what new watch I'm pining for, working for. So maybe it's not new watch time. Maybe it's new goal setting time, and I could still use your help with that because I'm split. I'm split between two really solid choices and one complete wild card that I discovered just recently that really has the proverbial gears going. And coming up in 2024, I'm really working towards something. Some of you may not know that in February of this year, 2023, I launched Red Button Media. Hit the redbutton.com. That's the whole story behind the sign back there. If I can get to a certain point with the company, which I think we're going to be on track to do by the end of next year, I'm going to be in a position to be able to reward that, to dedicate that, to have a little wearable trophy on my wrist for that next accomplishment, that next achievement. More than anything, this gives me a tangible goal to work towards. I know it might be a little bit superficial, but hey, I love watches, and that's only part of it because this next watch doesn't happen until my wife gets into a new car, which it's come in time for, until my family has a safety net built for them. Like, that's really what this is. So I'm looking for a mechanical chronograph. I still can't bring myself to purchase a watch without a date complication because I use my watch to reference the date at least a couple of times a day. It would drive me nuts if the date wasn't there. That takes away the Omega Speedmaster right away. That's the natural choice. I love the watch. It's a beautiful movement to look at. Speedmaster's fantastic, but there's no date display. So, it's out, and we're moving on to some other things. There's a couple of solid Omegas that I'm looking at, and one from kind of a wild card brand that a lot of people might not be aware of. They fly under the radar, and I think they're super underappreciated. So let's go over these watches that I'm looking at, and you tell me what I should work towards in 2024. For a little reference point, I'm a bigger guy. I have a bigger wrist. It's about 8 inches around, roughly 20 centimeters. Here's actually a shot of one of my G-Shocks on my wrist. This particular G-Shock measures in at 47 millimeter case diameter and 16 millimeters thick. I wear this watch well. It doesn't look too big on me. Needless to say, I wear large watches well. Some of the watches that we're talking about here are on the larger side of things, and that's not because I want it to be in your face. I just want it to fit my wrist, and I think all of these will. Also, caveat, I obviously don't have these with me. I've not seen them in the flesh, except for one of them, and that was years ago. So all of this is pending trying on and falling in love with these watches. But I don't see any reason that I wouldn't, and I don't see any reason that any of these wouldn't fit on my wrist wonderfully. So watch number 1, the Omega Speedmaster Gray Side of the Moon. The Gray Side of the Moon is a watch that I have a little bit of heartstrings attached to. It's the first watch that really caught my eye when I started getting into all this stuff quite some time ago, which was actually just after I met my now wife. This is the first watch that I ever showed to her as something that caught my eye. We actually tried it on at an Omega boutique, and she thought it looked really good on my wrist on, I think it was like our 3rd or 4th date that we ever went on. So that's kind of fun little memories to call back on. But this is a gorgeous watch. It is a 44.25 millimeter case. It is 49.8 millimeters lug to lug, 21 millimeters between the lugs, and 16.1 millimeters thick. So this is a thick boy. Very similar to that Casio G-Shock that you just saw. That's a 16 millimeter thick watch as well. So while this will fit on my wrist, it's going to be a little chunkier. However, the design here is obviously much more polished and refined than that G-Shock. The G-Shocks are made to look chunky. This is, by definition, not. It's not a super chunky looking watch at all. The case is actually made out of ceramic. gray ceramic that Omega has expertly finished as if it was a metal, because the brushing and the polishing on this thing is beautiful. I love the ceramic because it's highly scratch resistant, like to the nth degree scratch resistant. You can buy these used all day long for a big discount, and they basically look brand new. They're that scratch resistant. It's 50 meters water resistant, so I don't have to worry about it getting splashed by water when I'm doing the dishes or giving my son a bath or anything like that. And it weighs in at, for a bigger watch, a feather light 100 grams. The dial here is a disc of platinum with a beautiful kind of grain texture to it. Sapphire crystal, of course. It comes on a leather strap, a beautiful gray alligator leather strap, and a matching ceramic pin buckle, because why not have a ceramic pin buckle as well? The loom here is so much fun. The dial is basically fully loomed. The tachymeter, you tell me the right pronunciation, around the outside is also fully loomed, including the Omega logo on the crown. Is loom something that I need in this watch? Not necessarily. It's nice that it's there, but an abundance of loom like this sure does make it fun when the sun goes down. Movement in this guy is the now somewhat famous caliber 9300 for Omega. It is a 60-hour power reserve, automatic, self-winding chronograph movement, column wheel chronograph with a coaxial escapement designed by the fairly famous George Daniels. Like this is some boutique watchmaking sort of stuff that Omega just decided to adopt into their everyday offerings, which is pretty incredible. They're using a silicone balance spring here on a free sprung balance, which makes it super highly adjustable. And also that silicone balance spring effectively makes this watch amagnetic. So you don't have to worry about the watch ever getting magnetized, because the parts that will be affected by being magnetized aren't made by metal. So that just doesn't happen here. Phenomenal watch, phenomenal movement, finished by machine. This is not a hand finished movement. I would say this is a nice, pretty, yet industrial finish to this movement. I kind of like that. It's a bit of a function over form, but let's also make it nice to look at type of thing under that big display case back. Omega describes this as Geneva waves in an arabesque pattern, which is a super fancy way of saying there's something to look at when you flip it over. I really like that about this watch. Anyways, the Omega Gray Side of the Moon, fantastic watch. I would probably end up with multiple straps to switch out on this thing, because I love watches on straps. It's a lot of fun. Regardless of what watch I get, I'm probably going to end up with a handful of straps on it, and that's going to be wonderful. Retail price on this, $12,000. However, you can find them pre-owned, from what I'm seeing, in the $8,000 to $9,000 range all day, every day. That's kind of the budget that I'm looking at for this. I'm trying to keep it under $10,000 for this future goal that we're working towards. So there's the Omega Gray Side of the Moon. Next option, also from Omega, new release from Omega, the Omega Speedmaster 57. This is also a coaxial chronograph. Both of these watches from Omega are certified master chronometers, METAS certifications, which is fantastic. The Speedmaster 57, a little bit smaller. Not quite as big, not quite as chunky, not quite as out there, right? So we're looking at a 40.5 millimeter case diameter. Lug to lug is 49.6 though. So basically the same as the Gray Side. So I have a feeling these are going to wear pretty similarly on wrist. Lug to lug here is 20 millimeters as opposed to the 21 of the Gray Side. And the thickness, that's the big thing here. Omega lists the thickness of this watch at 12.99 millimeters. Good on you. Nice marketing there, Omega. It's not 13 millimeters thick. It's 12.99 millimeters thick, as opposed to the 16.1 millimeters of the Gray Side. Now, that is a big difference. I don't wear cuffs all that often. I dress casual far more than I dress up, but this would be easier to slip under a cuff. Not that I would ever be wearing it as a dress watch. I already have one of those. That was my birthday watch. Go back and watch that video if you want to see what I got. Spoiler alert, it's a Bulova. That said, the dial here is a really nice kind of sunray steel blue finish. It's just really pretty. I love this blue. This watch also comes in a burgundy and a black and a green, but I like this blue. That's just my personal preference. You go find your preference, and that's whatever it is. It comes also on a wonderfully wearing, from what I can see and what I've heard from all the reviews that I've seen, a wonderfully wearing flat link bracelet, which is much improved over a lot of the bracelets that Omega has been offering as of late. Both of these movements are column wheel chronographs. Both of the movements from Omega have dual registers, and I love the dual register, right? So you have your running seconds there at 9 o'clock, and then you have your chronograph hours and minutes at 3 o'clock. Of course, your chronograph seconds are in the center. That's the big second hand ticking away after you press the button down for your chronograph. But I really want to focus on the functionality of that 3 o'clock subregister, because the hours and minutes on the same subregister, being a 12-hour subregister like this, basically makes it a miniature clock on the dial. So if you're traveling and you need to keep track of a second time zone, you can simply start your chronograph at noon to track whatever time zone that you want. And then that subregister dial is effectively the time in whatever time zone that you're tracking using the chronograph function. And because of the way this movement is made, it actually has a jump hour feature on the main hour hand. So you can jump that hour to adjust the time based on the time zone that you're in while the chronograph is still running. So picture that. You're taking a trip. I live in California. Say I'm taking a trip to the East Coast, but I want to keep track of my home time right there on the watch. I start the chronograph at noon or midnight, whichever your preference, whenever you're awake, before you leave. Maybe you do this a day or two before your trip. Start the chronograph at noon or midnight. Let it run. Keep it running. It's okay. This movement lets you do that. Then once you get to your destination, you pop out the crown, one little click, and then jump the main hour 3 hours forward to get your New York time on the main dial, while still tracking your local time on the 3 o'clock sub dial. I think that's an incredible feature that goes really under the radar with either of these watches. All of these dual register, coaxial escapement, amazing movements that, that Omega has developed here are effectively a dual time movement if you want to use it that way as well. And then, of course, to balance out the dial, the date display at 6 o'clock. I'm a big fan of a symmetrical dial. Thank you, Omega. It looks beautiful. But how did they get this watch so much thinner? So this is the caliber 9906. Basically the same movement as the automatic that's in the gray side, but this is a manually wound movement. You still get the 60 hours of power reserve. It's manually wound, so you have to pay attention to it. Keep it wound. They both beat away at 4 hertz, 28,800 vibrations per hour. So that means your second hands are ticking away at 8 beats per second. And again, I mean, you're looking at a wonderfully finished movement. Not quite as much to look at here because there's a big 3/4 plate over the back of the entire movement that's finished in the same fashion. With the, what do they call it? Geneva waves, right? And of course it's machine finished. It's not a hand finished movement here. Still, they're giving you something to look at. And I like it. It looks nice. I do wish you could see into that manually wound chronograph movement a little bit more. Like if you look at a very nice chronograph movement by somebody like Alain Gonzona or Patek Philippe, or even the movement that comes in the standard Speedmaster Professional, it looks like a little city that they built in there. Like it is phenomenal stuff. I'm a huge fan of that. You can get lost in that case back. This case back, not so much. You can't really get lost in there. But that 3/4 plate does make it a bit more secure and gives me a little bit more confidence for a day-to-day wearing type of watch that could be bumped here and there, and things like that. So, there's some gives, there's some takes, but that is the Speedmaster 57. The broad arrow hand is fantastic. Again, you're looking at 50 meters water resistant here. So I'm not going to take any of these swimming. I don't like swimming anyway. It's not something I do. But if it gets splashed with water, it's nothing to freak out about either. So a fantastic watch, a fantastic wear on bracelet at 134 grams. I haven't gotten this one on wrist before, but I sure would love to. The last watch on this list for consideration. It is from Glashutte Original. I believe that's how it's pronounced. German watchmaker that is highly underrated. Most of the time you think German watchmakers and people are looking at the entry level stuff from I don't want to say entry level, but the more entry level, nicer stuff from Nomos. People are looking at the super high end stuff from A. Lange & Söhne. Not a whole lot of people are paying attention to Glashutte Original, and what they have done here with the Senator Chronograph Panorama date is beautiful. Actually, before we move in to this, that Speedmaster 57, forgot to mention this, retail price of $9,500. They're actually holding their value quite well in the secondary market right now. So brand new, it's just within budget. If I could get a good deal on a pre-owned one, cool. But that one I would have no reservations going and getting the full boutique experience and buying it new. Okay, Glashutte Original. And what this brand has given us with the Senator Chronograph Panorama date, I feel is completely underrated. And this is the version that I would want. It's a white dial. What do they call it here? They call the dial varnish white with a fine matte surface finish. All that just leads to basically maximum legibility, right? So you're looking at a fine matte white dial with printed scales and indices. There is plenty of lume on this watch. It's not going to knock your socks off or anything like that, but you're going to be able to tell the time if you're watching a movie. This watch, for me, is really all about the added features, the complications, and the movement. I mean, it's pretty amazing. The case on this is 42 millimeters. It's a thick boy, not gray side of the moon thick, but it's a little thicker. We're at 14.6 millimeters thick here, so we're kind of in between the Speedmaster 57 and the gray side of the moon. It's a screw down crown. You got 100 meter water resistance. Fantastic for everyday wear. It's shown here on a rubber strap, which I don't like. That's not my style. I don't like it. I'll probably have a handful of different color leather straps to switch out from and to on this particular watch because I feel like it's incredibly versatile. All right, I'm going to wax a little poetic about the movement here. It's their caliber 37-01. It is expertly hand finished. It is absolutely gorgeous. The power reserve gets a bump from what we've been looking at with Omega. We're at a 70-hour power reserve here. Automatic winding, vertical clutch, column wheel chronograph with a 12-hour register at the top, a 30-minute indicator at 3 o'clock. Your running seconds are at 9 o'clock. Your chronograph seconds are at center. Down at 6 o'clock, you get what they refer to as the panorama date, or a big date display, where both numerals of the date are on separate wheels. Not done how A. Lange & Söhne does it, where those wheels are kind of stacked on top of each other. This is actually a coplanar panorama date, so they are both right next to each other. There is no stacking or variations in height between those date wheels. It's just gorgeous. And if that wasn't enough, how about we toss in a nice, beautiful, understated little power reserve indicator within the 9 o'clock subdial? And oh yeah, it's a flyback chronograph too. The amount that you get packed into this watch is insane. I mean, let's face it, for such a complicated watch, that's a rather simplistic dial layout. I'm very impressed here. And the movement finishing is something to legitimately get lost into. You flip this thing over, take a look at the movement through the case back, and I mean, you could just wear this thing upside down and just look at the movement all day long. Who needs to tell the time with a movement like that? It's absolutely gorgeous. A 21 karat gold rotor weight, because why not? Right? Beautiful beveled polished edges, black polished components throughout, screws. Even the screws, just beautifully blued, and then black. I mean, I guess they're not black polished at that point. They're blue polished, right? Because they still look blue. They don't look black when the light hits them just right. But 3/4 plate with Glashutte stripes, right? This is not Geneva stripes because they are not a Swiss watchmaker. This is Glashutte stripes because we're coming from Germany here. Regulator-free fine adjustment. This is not a COSC or a METAS certified watch, but it is adjusted in the same way. So I'm pretty sure you have at least 5-point adjustment, which is chronometer standard, even though it may not be registered as an official chronometer. It's going to be adjusted and come from the factory at the same caliber as a chronometer would be. Did I miss anything on those functions? I don't think I did. It's just gorgeous. It's a gorgeous watch. I love it. It's fantastic. And the way that I talk about it, even the way that I hear myself talk about it now, it's the clear choice. It's absolutely the clear choice. But it's pending a try-on. The thing that I don't like about this watch is the thing that makes it styled by a German brand. The case is a bit of a hockey puck. I understand the German design, the style going into this watch, like all the design principles they're putting into it. It's nice, clean lines. Not a whole lot of heavily beveled edges or curves or anything like that. I get it. I understand. It's part of the beauty of this watch, the simplistic beauty and the nature of this watch. I agree. I wouldn't change it. But the case shapes on the Omegas are so much more interesting to me and so much more pleasing to my eye in pictures and in videos and in close-ups. I just can't shake it. So this is one of those ones that's why it's the wild card. Also, it does not have any silicone parts. So this is not amagnetic. This is not anti-magnetic. It could be magnetized. That could be an issue if you forget to take your watch off and you need a CAT scan, or if you're walking through a metal detector just the wrong way, or there's a lot of different concerns with magnetism. Personally, I've never had an issue with it, so I guess it's not that big of a deal. Also, this movement, while it gives you so much more, it doesn't display it the same way. So you kind of lose that kind of hack of a dual time function that the Omegas give you with that 3 o'clock register. Now, this does give you a 12-hour register for the chronograph, but it doesn't give you the quick jumping hour hand. And I haven't verified this, but I doubt you'd be able to adjust the time while the chronograph was running on this. I can't imagine that's an additional complication that they've built into this. So there would be no dual time capabilities on this watch. Not that I'm a big traveler. I just think it's kind of a cool thing to have. Just saying. Sometimes it's okay to want something just because it's cool. So, Omega, gray side of the moon. Incredible watch. Oh, I totally breezed over the price. What's the price on this? With a standard pin buckle clasp, you're looking at $13,400 on this. From what I've seen online, you can pick them up pre-owned, which is the way that I would go, in the $9,000 to $10,000 range. So just under that magical $10,000 budget that I'm looking at. There's my brain dump on these 3 watches that I'm looking at. What do you think? What's your favorite and why? What should I get? Don't point me in any other directions. I'm confused enough as it is. I don't care about your favorite watch. I want to know what watch I want to buy. So you spend my future money down in the comments. Let me know what you think. Gray side of the moon. Amazing watch. Speedmaster 57, possibly the most versatile chronograph on this list. And that Glashutte original is just the original. I'm sorry. I know I'm mispronouncing it some way, shape, or form. It's just it's the wild card for so many reasons. It's such a cool watch that gives you so much bang for the buck. It's pretty surprising. Again, hittheredbutton.com. Head over there. We specialize in making authentic, professional video content for businesses to help get their brands out there and build them up on social medias and all sorts of different ways, so they can just kind of add to their marketing campaigns and make their marketing dollars stretch as far as possible without charging standard agency pricing. If you have anybody who may be interested, point them to my website and you can say that you helped me buy this watch at the end of next year. Hopefully, that would be wonderful. Appreciate you watching, and we shall talk to you next time.